up first, right? Well, great. Let's go ahead and get started. Thank you all for being here and welcome to the Youth Empowerment Through Eviction Research Community Forum. I see a lot of folks coming in and dropping their names in the chat for us. It's great if you can drop your name and your organization if you're with one. We're really happy to have you, and I know this is going to be a really exciting evening. So just a little bit of background. So this is, as I said, youth engagement through eviction research, or excuse me, youth empowerment through eviction research. Wow. This is a bad start, y'all, but there's going to be a much better evening coming up with these young people who are much more on their game than I am. We've been calling this YEER for short, YEER. And if you happen to be on your Instagram or Twitter this evening, you can hashtag it with YEER, YEER eviction. So YEER is a partnership between Ben, Teresa, and me at the RVA Eviction Lab, Alex Wagamon at the School of Social Work at VCU, 6 Points Innovation Center, Virginia Community Voice, and advocates for Richmond Youth. And young people through those organizations conducted research from learning about the roots of eviction to collecting data and analyzing their results. And tonight you're going to hear from them about their work and what it means to our community in Richmond. So the way that it'll go, we'll start with a little bit of stage setting with Ben and Alex really talking a little bit about, and briefly, because we want to get to what the young people have to say about kind of the roots of eviction and really the impacts and what that means and with other social issues. Then the young people will share their research in their respective groups. There will be a little bit of Q&A. So if you happen to have a question for the young people, pop it in the chat. You can direct it at whichever group you would like to answer the question, or if it's general, no need to direct it. And then there'll be a panel discussion with one young person from each group to really talk about this work and what it means in a larger sense in terms of engagement for the city. Next slide, please. So this work was really supported by so many people in our community, and we really appreciated them. So we want to thank our community experts who came in, Duran Chavis, Omari Al-Qaddafi, Mariah Williams, Dr. Megan Goff, Dr. Nicole Corley, Dr. Stephanie O'Dara, and Dr. Eli Costin. Our site coordinators, who you really won't see here, but they really have done so much work on this with the young people every week, engaging them and teaching research methods and kind of asking good questions and really being a big part of this. So Joe White and Jackie Lawrence from Six Pick, Elaine Williams from Virginia Community Voice, and Tiffany Haynes from Advocates for Richmond Youth. And we really want to thank Natalie Pennywell and the staff from the VCU Health Hub at 25th who hosted us before we went remote for COVID. So now I will actually turn it over to Ben Teresa from the RV Eviction Lab, who will be starting us off. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Kate. Thank you so much for the introduction. Welcome, everybody. It's great to be with you tonight, and we really look forward to hearing from the young people. And so what I wanted to do in the next few brief minutes is kind of set the stage. Understanding eviction is really depends on understanding what's happening now, and also understanding different pieces and especially the history related to eviction for understanding the current moment. And so one of the things that's particularly important to think about is, where does eviction occur? And so we know from collecting data through both the Princeton Eviction Lab, through our work at the RVA Eviction Lab, that eviction is something that happens unevenly across Virginia, across cities in Virginia, and in particular across the Richmond region. And so we can understand from the data that in some places in the region and in the city of Richmond, for example, there are many as 1 in 5 renters or even 1 in 3 renters in some neighborhoods that will receive an eviction judgment, very likely experiencing displacement and being evicted from their home in the course of the year. So there's really some areas that are very highly, some neighborhoods in particular, that are very highly impacted. Those tend in the city of Richmond to be on the north side and the south side of the city. We also, in the next slide, we can understand the current moment. It's really important to think beyond the present. We need to understand eviction in historical perspective. And so that means identifying previous episodes in our history of racialized exclusion and displacement from housing, from communities, and from the opportunities that allow really for stable and fulfilled lives. And so in particular, one of the things that we worked on with the community experts that came in and the young people spent time learning about historically how programs like the Homeowners Loan Corporation really limited Black homeownership and led over time to disinvestment in housing and in Black neighborhoods, especially in places like Richmond. So in the next slide, we can see that also urban development over time, downtown redevelopment, major highway construction, including 95, 64 through Richmond, really further isolated, displaced, and dispossessed communities from their housing, from their businesses, and ultimately from their wealth building opportunities. And so really we should think about economic dispossession also as a kind of political suppression, leading to further rounds of marginalization, of excluding these neighborhoods and the people who live in them from meaningful participation in full civic life. So finally, I just want to end my piece in the last slide is coming back to the current moment and understanding the current moment of eviction, of housing instability, overlapping with the COVID-19 pandemic, really as another episode in a long-standing and recurring set of patterns of racialized impacts. And so without a home, Of course, we can understand that it's very very difficult for people to quarantine, to self-isolate, to maintain the proper practices that would really mitigate the pandemic. And so this moment also has wide-ranging consequences. And so, and what will follow on in the next few minutes of the rest of the evening is a deeper dive into the current situation. Thank you.
Thank you, Ben. Good evening, everyone. I am Alex Wagaman with the School of Social Work at VCU. And one of the great values of this partnership has been our ability to look at these historical patterns that Ben mentioned and what the numbers tell us about eviction across our region, while also acknowledging and exploring the human impact of evictions, looking beyond the numbers. Through a social work lens, we can put these pictures together to get a deeper understanding of the issue. What I know for certain through my work with young people in our community and through the ongoing research conducted with advocates for Richmond Youth, I know that eviction has a detrimental impact on people's well-being. Our community often debates and discusses the causes of eviction, and these discussions are often laden with messages that blame people for their experiences with eviction or seek to identify individual challenges that led to the eviction. We rarely, if ever, talk about the impact of forced displacement, the effect that the trauma of eviction has on the human, the physical, mental, emotional, social, and spiritual damage that is done. I know young people in my work who are just entering adulthood who are already affected. If they receive a notice on their door from a landlord, even if it's about something unrelated to eviction, their mental health is affected. I know young people in our community who will pack up their belongings and leave an apartment just so they don't have to endure the trauma of having their things forcibly removed. The impact of eviction on the people in our community is both short and long-term. We need to look at it, we need to understand it, and we need to act. Looking beyond the numbers around eviction in our region also helps us to understand that the numbers are limited. For example, we often look at city or county specific data without thinking about the fluidity with which people cross those geographic boundaries, which really mean nothing when you're in search of a safe place to sleep. Similarly, there are limitations around how we define eviction. Many people in our community are forced out of their housing in illegal ways, or were put into situations where they can't be on a lease and thus have no rights to be upheld according to the law. We don't see these stories in the numbers. Next slide, please. All of this highlights the need to be led by the expertise of folks with lived experience. To truly identify solutions, we have to truly understand the problem. And who knows it better than those who see it playing out in their communities? As Brian Stevenson says, we have to get proximate. Youth participatory action research is a strategy for this. Participatory action research is a research methodology that questions our white dominant notions of knowledge and expertise. It questions the colonizing of knowledge production, which higher education institutions often participate in. And it shifts power to those who should be leading the charge. It is an intentional and structural shift. With this in mind, we entered into this partnership to form the Youth Empowerment Through Eviction Research, or YEER project. To tell you a little bit more about the project and what you will see and hear tonight, it's my pleasure to introduce Jackie Lawrence, former director of SixPIC and current director of health equity at the Richmond City and Henrico Health District. Jackie.
Hi, everyone. I am really excited to be back with the group and helping share some of this information today. As Alex mentioned, former director of 6 Points Innovation Center, and just really happy that the youth and everyone are continuing on this journey to sharing about eviction, creating solutions, and creating changes. And the current director, Kai Banks, is really focused on continuing this mission, so I really appreciate you. And so with that being said, I wanted to, as Alex said, tell a little story about how this all got started. And so the Youth Empower for Research project is one that started nearly 2 years ago in spring of 2019. Virginia Commonwealth University School of Social Work and the Wilder School came together in support with SixPick, the Advocates for Richmond Youth and Virginia Community Voice, submitted a grant. When we found out that we received this grant, we were all excited. And, you know, just as you hear the information that was shared before you, it's really personally giving me chills and thinking about the amazing work that the youth were about to embark on. And so we all had collaborated before this grant and working on housing and eviction work in different spaces. And however, to have one opportunity to unite together, I could just feel the power that was going to come out of this group. And so SixPick was happy to join as one of the partners just because the focus to grow urban youth leaders. And in previous years had worked with the youth and community on different visions that folks had for the Highland Park neighborhood. And so just so excited to join in collaboration with folks from different parts of the city. And so with that, the group got to work in late summer, and just want to shout out for the team that COVID did not stop this work. The youth and team continued to meet virtually. At the time when I was still working there, meeting twice a month online, and just continuing to be in community with one another. And so each of these youth partners had a site coordinator, and these site coordinators engaged with the youth during each session and in between. I know for SixPick, Ms. Jo would continue to check in on youth and connecting them to services even outside of this particular project. And so something that Alex spoke about, in knowing that youth with lived experience are the ones that leading this work, and really learning from the youth and supporting them in different ways. And so throughout this project, we drew on the expertise of other community leaders, some of those that were mentioned when we first opened this presentation. And so we just continuing to share this information with folks. We really appreciate everything that's going to be shared tonight. And even though when we started, we were not sure where we would end up, but the information and the reports that the youth are going to share with you all are extremely powerful. And we're just really hoping that you all are able to take that information and embed it into your own work. And so without further ado, I will pause there and pass it to our next speaker, Ms. Jo White.
Good evening, all. This is Jo White from 6 Points Innovation Center. The youth that will speak during this part of the presentation are part of a program called City Builders, here at SixPick, as most people call it. City Builders is a group of young people who advance civic power for teens in the Richmond area. So first up, you're going to hear from Keshana Johnson.
Hi, my name is Keshana Johnson. Me and 4 other students participated in the 2020 Youth Empowerment Through Eviction Research Project, better known as YEER. Empowerment is the process of becoming stronger and more confident, especially when controlling one's life and claiming one's rights. This program does just that. We have become stronger and more confident in our future by understanding laws that may affect us in the future and affect so many people now, especially people of color. 2020 ushered in a new era for social justice. Racial justice ran rapid. The murder of George Floyd at the knees of police, the Black Lives Matter movement, the monuments coming down, and the election all played a part in this racial unjust period. And on top of all that, Richmond became the second highest state for eviction. These things causes a lot of mental health issues and violence. After a lot of discussion, we decided to research what is the relationship between eviction, mental health challenges, and chances of committing violence. Here's Hope Braxton to tell you more.
We want to thank everyone who guided us through the past year to learn about evictions. Our research team tackled the question, what is the relationship between evictions, mental health challenges, and gun violence? Our research project started out with us deciding how we wanted to do the research. We had decided that we wanted to collect data by interviewing folks who have been through this crisis. Through the process, we learned that Richmond has the second highest rate of evictions, how the eviction freeze works, and how African Americans are disproportionately affected.
This is Hope Braxton. Thank you for listening to my video. When we started our research project, we originally wanted to focus on Mosby Court because statistics showed that in late 2019, more than double of the number of evictions were filled than were typically filled. According to the Central Virginia Legal Aid Society, RRHA normally files slightly over 100 unlawful detainers a month against residents who haven't paid some portion of their rent or utilities. But during the last 3 weeks of 2019, RRHA will serve 266 notices. And this chart from 2016 shows that the rate of shootings in the city directly correlates with the eviction rate. With 24% eviction rate in Mosby Court, but the average in Richmond being only 11.4%. And the number of shootings in the housing development at the highest rate of 22.8%. You see the correlation between evictions and gun violence. Unfortunately, we weren't able to focus just on Mosby Court because we didn't have a way of interviewing people just from that area through our research method. We decided to gather our research through surveys. The survey questions were posted on our school social media pages. Those questions included, how has being evicted affected your life so far? Has that caused you many mental health issues? If so, how many? If so, how have you been dealing with it? What kind of resources do you wish you had in your neighborhood, specifically related to eviction? At the start of the stay-at-home order and eviction freeze, violent crime was low. However, when the eviction freeze was lifted, violent crime increased drastically. How do you feel about this and why do you think it happened? Only women completed our survey. I'm going to pass it on to Spirit to tell you about that.
Bun, and I am a member of the Student Housing Leaders Program. African American women were the only people who answered our survey questions. We think that that was because the audience we have in our social media avenues are mostly Black people. And because Black people experience eviction more than white people. We think only women answered the survey because men have too much pride to answer it. We feel that women get more evicted than men because most of them are single moms that don't have enough money to keep up the bills with just their income. Although only adults answered the surveys, we believe eviction affects the whole family. Children have to change schools, get new friends, etc., and maybe even have to deal with bullying.
Spirit?
Oh, my camera isn't working. Is that fine?
Absolutely.
All right, I'm sorry about that. Thank you for listening to my video. In April 2018, the New York Times reported research which examined 83 million eviction records. The article spotlighted Richmond, Virginia, the city with the second highest eviction rate in the nation, where eviction judgments are far more common in areas where people of color live than they are in predominantly white neighborhoods. And according to the study by Rutgers and Princeton University in 2020, drawing on millions of court records of eviction cases filed between 2012 and 2016, their study documents Black and Latino female renters face higher eviction rates than their male counterparts. These findings represent the most comprehensive investigation to date of racial and gender disparities among evicted renters in the United States. Another thing we learned is that people get evicted more than once. For more on that, here's Olivia's video.
people get evicted more than once, sometimes many times. We think that this worsens things because it hurts their credit and their ability to find an apartment or be able to find a home. It makes it very difficult for them. We also learned that some people would much rather lay on the street or live on the street than live in a shelter because of their pride and them not wanting to admit that you need help or not letting other people know that you have a need. We learned that there are many resources since COVID-19 has struck and they aren't enough. And because of this COVID environment with people getting laid off, 2020 has offered many new programs to help.
Garrett?
All right. One of the things she mentioned was how people get evicted more than once. We find that one reason people get evicted multiple times is because they don't know their rights. The law with the pandemic has changed quite a bit. As so many people have lost their jobs or lost hours at their jobs, they're sinking deeper into debt. There are several things tenants can do to avoid being evicted in 2021. Throughout the pandemic, those struggling to pay the bills have had the opportunity to apply for city and federal rent relief. And landlords have to abide by different rules, such as the fact that they now have to give tenants a 14-day notice to pay rather than a 5-day notice. They also have to give tenants information for them to file for rent relief.
Kishana?
Find out about rent assistance programs. Tenants work with your landlords with payment arrangements if possible. Don't take advantage of them because you think they can't evict you. And landlords, treat everyone the same. Don't be overly ready to push people of color out your homes when you might give a white person a second chance.
Get the facts, know your rights, find out what the laws are for tenants and for landlords.
Everyone understand that we're all under so much stress and anxiety right now with the pandemic, schools closed, and racial tensions that we're all on in. Try to be more understanding than you ever had to be in your life. Thank you for all being here today, and thank you for listening to our presentation.
Thank you, Hope, Kishana, and Spirit. We're going to pass this off now to RVA Thrives.
Hello, my name is DJ. My pronouns are she and her. We are the RVA Thrives research team. We're a group of young people residing in the south side of Richmond, and we strive to create social change around eviction and housing instability. Our research focused on evictions and its impact on mental health, specifically for Black households. We have 2 team members not here tonight, but we wanted to make sure we acknowledge their contributions, Jerisha Forbes and Isaiah James. And Elaine, our wonderful project instructor. She has been a big help in guiding us and helping us reach the goal we are striving for. I'm going to explain our research question and what we wanted to understand. Our research question was, how does facing eviction affect the mental health of Black households? I personally found this topic interesting because I've had personal experiences where the mental health aspect in situations like this is often overlooked, and I would like to bring more awareness to it. I would also like to break the tabooness of mental health as a whole and let people know it's a normal thing to go through and that it's okay to talk about it. We chose this topic because it is a much needed conversation. It's relevant to the topic of eviction, but it's not one that normally comes to mind or is talked about. When you speak of eviction, you think of bias or discrimination, but you don't often think about the mental health aspect of it. We'll have Alasia talk about how we collected our data.
Hi, I'm Alasia. My pronouns are she and her. We conducted our research through focus groups because we wanted to listen to the firsthand experiences of the people who had to withstand the eviction process. And we wanted our focus group participants to be able to bounce their ideas off of each other and pretty much have a piggyback routine occur. Our focus group participants were Black residents who were 16-year-olds or older and had experienced or knew someone who experienced the eviction in the South Side because we wanted to gain the experience of the various age groups and perspectives, and learn the experiences of people from our surrounding community, especially since the eviction rate in the South Side is almost double the eviction rate in the rest of the city. The focus group took place over Zoom because of COVID, and we had one team member act as a scribe, another team member lead the focus group as the leader, and Ms. Elaine acted as a moderator between the focus group participants and our team leader. When we read through the transcripts for each focus group, we pulled out repetitive ideas and key points of the multiple conversations that were relevant to the research question. And from there, we found some things that Tatiana's gonna explain if she's here.
Hello, my name is Tatiana. My pronouns are she, they. I'm going to talk about the common themes and findings that we had collected from the focus group. After we conducted 2 focus groups, we had 2 to 3 participants in each. We had a better understanding of how the eviction process affects the mental health of Black individuals, their families, and their communities. Many themes had jumped out at us while we were collecting data, but the main 3 we want to focus on are raising awareness, the impacts of mental health in the community. Raising awareness means that we learned that people wanted help understanding tenant rights when it came to paying their rent and talking to their landlord. Also understanding the eviction process and the steps during and after eviction. Focus group participants also wanted someone to talk about the lasting trauma that they carry years on after eviction. The lack of resources and support can make someone feel like it's their personal problem and they have to navigate a confusing and intimidating process on their own. This trauma has current, lasting, and oftentimes unacknowledged impacts on mental health. We learned that there aren't a lot of resources for mental health when going through eviction besides some small financial benefits. People mostly rely on community and family support. Talking about mental health is a hard topic for some people, and it's even harder for people to talk about when people are made to feel like it's their fault. But we know that this issue is larger than an individual fault. It's a systematic issue. We acknowledge that this is a difficult topic for people to talk about and the impact that mental health has on community members. We want to hold a space for folks that had lived their experience and shared with one another, as well as strategize together to help mitigate community conversations to both acknowledge and reduce the stigma around it. We also found that evictions negatively impact communities by causing shared trauma. Trauma is sustained in the community more than we had expected, and it's not just the individual that experiences the trauma. Eviction affects neighbors, family members, and extended support systems. Eviction destabilizes communities and victimizes more than just the individual experiencing it. Next slide, please. Okay. We recommend a holistic approach to addressing mental health for individuals experiencing eviction. A holistic approach could look like providing resources for tenants and landlords and create clear lines of communication. For example, we find that oftentimes miscommunication happens between tenants and landlords, and it can lead to evictions, such as when the tenant requests an extension to pay rent and the landlord doesn't account or acknowledge it. We envision working with a communication facilitator who has training in psychology and or is experienced with having hard and heavy conversations. Another piece of mental health is the anxiety and uncertainty of what happens during and after evictions. Even if a person is able to get financial resources to stay in their home, they often have a lot of anxiety about potential future evictions. Since evictions affect the whole community, we also want to take a community approach to supporting individuals who are experiencing it. We want to hold community conversations about mental health and how eviction is a systematic issue rather than an individual one. Holding space for people with lived experiences to share the stories can help community members that have gone through or are going through evictions know that they aren't alone. We want more funding to continue this research by holding more in-depth community conversations and working with communities to find solutions to reduce eviction stigma and mental health trauma. Now we would like to introduce advocates for Richmond Youth.
Hello, everyone. My name is Dee and my pronouns are she, her.
I am Jay and my pronouns are he, him.
Hi, everyone. My name is Destiny Barnett and my pronouns are she, her, queen.
And we are with Advocates. We are happy to be here with you this evening to share our research with you. Before we begin with our research presentation, we want you to consider the following questions. Do you know someone who is LGBTQ+? Do you know someone who is Black or brown and LGBTQ+? Do you know someone who is Black or brown, LGBTQ+, and has experienced eviction? We ask you to consider these questions because the population we chose to focus our research on is often invisible or overlooked when addressing eviction in our community. We hope to change that.
Our team researched how Black and brown LGBTQ+ young people experience and are impacted by eviction. We decided to focus on this research topic because a lot of LGBTQ+ people experience evictions and displacement. And we wanted to bring awareness to this. Eviction among Black and brown LGBTQ+ people is often invisible in the broader community as well as in the LGBTQ+ community. We thought the experience of Black and brown LGBTQ+ people was different from others who have experienced eviction, and we wanted to learn more. We also chose this topic because of lived experience.
So what our research methods are, we decided to conduct, We decided to conduct interviews and we included a mapping component, which helped us to understand the housing journey of our participants after their evictions. We recruited participants on social media through local organizations serving youth experience homelessness. People were eligible to participate if they were the age 18 to 30, had an eviction in Richmond within the last 5 years. Participants also had to be LGBTQ and or Black and brown. Our team developed an interview guide that included questions to help us understand what resources people use, like legal services. We asked about their experiences before, during, and after the eviction. And we asked about where people stayed before and after the eviction, so we could map the paths of participants to understand their instability. We conducted a total of 6 interviews on Zoom. The interviews lasted between 30 minutes to just over an hour. We recorded those interviews and then had them transcribed. Of the 6 people that participated in our study, 5 were Black or African American and 1 was Filipino. Participants ranged in age from 20 to 26. Some of our participants were legally evicted and others were informally evicted. 3 of the participants were also parents. Once our interviews were transcribed, we started to analyze them by reading carefully through each one and coding each aspect of the interview. We did this by using Jamboards, which allowed us to visualize the codes from each story. The next step was that we looked at all of the Jamboards to identify the things that were similar and different. This allowed us to pull out the key themes from our interviews, and some of which we will present to you now.
Okay, so there are 5 key findings that we wanted to share tonight. First, it is important to understand that all the young people moved a lot of times in a short time frame after their eviction. It took a while to stabilize, and some participants were still trying at the time of the interview. The instability they experienced after being evicted impacted their ability to keep jobs, affected their mental health, and more. You can see on this first map, each participant's journey overlaid onto one map. This tracked their moving pattern from the place they experienced eviction up to where they were living at at the time of the interview. This helps you to get a sense of the moving patterns to understand what this looks like on an individual level. We will show you another map on this map. We will show you another map. On this map, you can see that this participant moved between friends' houses, a shelter, their family's home, and an apartment. Moving has been identified as one of the top stressors a person experiences in a lifetime. The young people in this study were forced to move due to eviction and then had multiple subsequent moves. Our second key finding is that support during the eviction process varied. Friends and partners were important resources. Our research showed us that LGBTQ plus young people need resources that honor these relationships. Family could not always be counted on for support. LGBTQ plus specific resources and support were important beyond just the tangible or financial help, as illustrated by the quote you see on the slide. Identity affirming resources impact how young people feel about being LGBTQ plus. Our third key finding is related to legal support, which is an essential resource that has to be assessed in a timely way in order to actually be helpful. For the most part, young people in our study did not know about resources and tenant laws that are in place to help them. Only one participant knew about legal rights during the eviction, and they learned about it from the other tenants in their apartment complex when the CDC moratorium on eviction was put into place. The quote you see is from this participant. The knowledge they gained from their neighbors helped them keep from a second eviction. Our fourth key finding is one that only half of our participants experienced, but was a pattern that we believe is important to highlight. Young people in our study entered into lease agreements with multiple people in order to afford the rent. These people included friends and family members. But having multiple people on the lease puts the whole household at risk if one person doesn't pay their rent or breaks the other guidelines in the lease. And that is exactly what happened to several participants. Unfortunately, there was nothing they could do to keep their housing. This finding highlights the lack of safe, affordable housing. Young people shouldn't need to live with other people just to afford rent. One participant was pushed to a higher rental market due to feeling unsafe. Based on the research done by the National Low Need to make 20% an hour in order to afford a modest 2-bedroom apartment. This is pretty far from the current minimum wage. And for every 100 extremely low income renter household in Virginia, there are 36 affordable and available rental homes. Our fifth and final finding is that we want to share with you tonight, this young people when they're finding and maintaining their household. It is, oh Lordy Jesus, it is complex. It is sometimes hard to pinpoint. We heard stories based on discrimination and parents' perceived immigration status. The story we have quoted on the slide is just one example of the ways discrimination plays out and ultimately impacts the long-term stability of.
All right. Based on our research findings, we have identified several recommendations. We ask that you consider how you might be able to help a youth influence change in the areas we highlight. The LGBTQ community needs to understand the barriers that Black and Brown youth, LGBT youth face in finding and maintaining housing. We want LGBTQ community leaders finding ways to support youth with chosen family models of housing support. A lot of housing programs serving youth support a one youth, one lease model. This is not sustainable. We need to get young people information about their rights and resources. Young people need to know their legal rights and responsibilities as tenants. They need legal advice and support that is accessible. They need lease agreements that are accessible and easy to understand. Now that the Virginia Values Act is in effect, LGBTQ plus people are protected from discrimination in housing. Sometimes. We need to support young people in knowing their rights and work to enforce this. Young people need support after an eviction. It takes a toll on your well-being to experience displacement and then to have instability. And evictions follow you. People need to know that helping to pay off an eviction can be life-changing. It gives people a fresh start. And finally, we must prioritize the building of more affordable housing at the extremely low income level. We need housing that is affordable to people who make minimum wage. You heard the data on the gaps describing my team member earlier. This is essential to our ability to prevent evictions.
Thank you for your time and attention. You being here tonight to hear about research, and we look forward to answering some of your questions.
Fantastic. Thank you so much to all three of our youth research teams. I hope you're seeing all the love in the chat and all of the great information that folks are receiving from your research. Would love to just pose a couple of questions that have come through on the chat. We have a few minutes for questions, and these are for really any team. So I'll open it up for any of the young people on the Six Pick, RVA Thrives, or Advocates for Richmond Youth teams. So the first question, I think this is a really good one. We're starting to think about recommendations that y'all are making about getting the word out about resources and legal protections, making sure people know their rights as tenants and what resources are available to them. If you could give advice to folks who are in the media or in the news media, what advice would you give them about how best to get information out into communities about people's rights and the legal protections that exist? Anybody, any of the young people on the research teams can take this question. Ideas? What can the media do? How can they get the word out?
Hey everyone, it's Destiny Barnett. And I think we just need to start calling them out, popping up with cameras, you know. People start to act a little different when, you know, they're put on blast. So that's my recommendation.
So Destiny, you're saying that we need to actually hold landlords accountable in the media?
Yes, and we need to start recording the companies or the agencies that are renting out to people and are wrongfully doing people. We need to have a list of those names.
Thank you, Destiny. Any of the other team members want to respond to that about how we can get information out using the media to help people know what their legal rights are?
Hi, it's Alicia. My suggestion would be to connect with community leaders, but also groups like this. I learned that this could be very informative, but also knowing what's happening specifically in your community can help educate you a lot. And also try to connect more with the people who are directly impacted from what we learned. It could be the person evicted or someone who witnessed it.
Great, thank you, Elijah. And lifting some of the voices of folks in community, connecting with groups like this, folks in community learning rights, and then taking that back into community. DJ, were you going to jump in on the question?
Yeah, I just wanted to say also, if the media encouraged individuals to educate themselves as well, I think that would help with the issue. Just saying, like, if you have a question, research it. Just, take the initiative to look it up yourself instead of, relying on the people that are telling you the information, say like coming from the landlord. Research it yourself and really just educate yourself on the topic.
That's a great point, DJ, because in a lot of ways, what we've learned through this project is that it changes all the time too, right? So even just letting people in communities know that they do have rights and they should look those up and be aware of them can get that ball rolling. Anybody else want to respond to that question before I move on to another one?
Yes. Hi, B. I was just gonna say, like a flyer would be nice. It's like every time that the tenant law changes, or something changes, the person just send out a flyer to say, hey, this changed, or something like that in that sense.
Great, so keeping folks updated on those changes and having materials out in community, flyers, other materials. Thank you, Dee. All right, I'm gonna shift gears and ask a question. This actually, this question was for, I believe for the RVA Thrives team, but I think we could also open it up because mental health and the mental health impact of eviction came up in all three studies. What are your recommendations about how to get mental health resources out into communities, and particularly connecting Black families, Black communities with mental health services and providers? Any advice or thoughts about how to do that? Oh, I saw Elijah and DJ, come on.
Okay, you can go.
Had a conversation like this. We put together a list of people who could possibly support this cause, considering that a lot of this might end up being a pro bono cause. It would be better if we could, like, if this was in person, of course, if we can like invite those people, like therapists and just anyone with a background in helping people in these situations, if we can open up a space to them where people are free to join. And that was like, I believe, like the main idea of where this situation can branch off to, because once you can create that space where the help and people who need the help can connect, then most likely they'll go out on their own and continue gaining that need and aid.
Thank you, Elijah. DJ, did you want to jump in?
Yeah, so in addition to that, we also spoke about when we have these people coming in, these resources coming in, that the community is familiar and they are relatable, because it's easier to speak to someone, it's easier to talk to someone that you can connect to on a deeper level. So instead of just bringing outside sources in from somewhere downtown, someone that you never seen before, we spoke about having someone relatable, someone from either from the community or from a neighboring community, maybe someone that you've seen on TV that you can actually relate to. Like, I can speak to you knowing that you've been through something similar, or someone that has been through something similar. So the content isn't coming from left field. It's not like there's an outside source telling me how to deal with my issues. You know what I'm saying?
Thank you, DJ. Tatiana, I saw you come on. Do you want to answer? Tatiana, do you want to jump in, or you? Okay. Love, love, love the idea of thinking about communities as being their own solutions. Fabulous. All right, a couple of other quick questions and then we're going to move into our panel. One of the questions was about the actual research process. And all of you had to actually access people in community to get them to participate in your studies. So what were some of the challenges that you faced in trying to get people to participate in your interviews or in your focus groups or in your survey? How were you able to establish trust to get these awesome results that you got? That's any team.
I can start. Again, my name is Destiny Barnett and my pronouns are she, her, queen. I think the reason why the people that we interviewed felt comfortable with us is because we actually have lived experience. All of the people that done this research in my group, ARY's group, we have been homeless. We are either parents, we are all Black, and we are all queer. And I think that made a great difference in, being able, like relating to someone makes a great difference. If I know that you've been through these things and it's not, oh, I'm trying to sympathize or empathize with you, it's more of like, I know the feeling. So that's what helped us.
Thank you, Destiny. Anybody else want to jump in on that question? Challenges you faced getting folks to talk with you, and how did you build trust, DJ?
Yeah, so our group, I found it was really helpful to continue to reiterate the fact that the information that you're sharing will remain confidential, and your person won't be exposed. Like this experience, we are truly just taking the experience for research. We're not putting you on social media. We're not, using your name and anything. So I feel like reiterating that is building the trust. And also we had a document that you signed, that we signed, just letting people know that the information that you're giving us is confidential, will stay confidential.
Great, thank you, DJ. Anybody else want to jump in on that question? I think we'll do one more question. Nope, okay. So we have a question about, and this actually I think comes from a point that Advocates for Richmond Youth made, but we can open this up to anyone, any of the teams. What is support, or what could support look like after an eviction? The Advocates for Richmond Youth and Destiny mentioned helping people pay off an eviction. What are some other ways that folks could show up, or organizations could show up and provide support after an eviction? What would you suggest?
I think people, the community, and organizations can all show like their largest bit of support by acknowledging the situation and not just bypassing it. And I feel like that's the biggest thing anyone can do.
Can I add preventative services? Because we don't really have that. We don't have, it's always, oh, let me know when you're 3 days close to homelessness, or not, let me help you when I know you're already a month or 2 months behind. So we need preventative services. That's what we need.
Fabulous, thank y'all. Anyone else want to answer that question? All right, we'll do one more quick question, and then we'll move into the panel. And this question is, what was the best part of doing this research for you?
Hi, it's B. For me, it was just conducting the interview with our participants and actually getting to know their stories, getting to know them personally, just talking, letting them basically just vent to us about their eviction experience.
Thank you, Dee. Anybody else want to jump in? What was the best part of conducting the research for you?
Okay, so the best part for me was taking something that I'm actually passionate about, bringing it back to my community, and then also this part here is sharing the research that I've done, like the conclusions that I've come to. That was the best part for me. It was the whole focus group itself, coming up with the questions, even conducting the focus group for me, it was like, as I'm doing it, I'm like, this is so powerful. Like the words that these people spoke, it was almost like poetic. It was ridiculous. And it's like the experience was traumatic, but what came out of it and how they dealt with it and how, their words of motivation, they're passionate about it themselves, so no one else goes through it. And the willingness of them to help other people and to help us help other people was beautiful to me. That was the best part.
Thank you, DJ. That is a perfect place to transition. All right, it is my pleasure to now turn it over to Tiffany Haynes, who is with Advocates for Richmond Youth. Actually one of the founding members of Advocates for Richmond Youth in 2014 and was our site coordinator for the YEER team in this project. Tiffany, I'm turning it over to you.
So I know that I wasn't supposed to answer the questions, but I would love to say that the best part was watching how passionate these young people were when doing the work, when creating this study, when even just reviewing the material after the studies. Just the fact that we had young people literally offering like to direct them to resources. Did you try this? Did you try that? And so for me, it was just a passion and commitment to the work. So I want to go ahead and jump into just introducing the young people. I hope that everyone here is having a good evening so far and that you are enjoying this data and information that these young people are presenting to you. I will be moderating the panel with 3 amazing young people, one from each research team. They've all worked for a year diligently to build these studies from the ground up. I know you guys have been doing this throughout the entire throughout the entire presentation, but I wanted you all to go ahead and just lift them up in the chat. Everyone from each team, just lift them up from the chat. So I'm just gonna give like literally 20 seconds. So, yes, Elaine, yes, yes, Emily. Thank you guys, thank you, Jackie. Yes, they are amazing, like seriously. Okay, so, all right. So during this panel, I'm going to ask them about their experiences throughout the project and some of their takeaways. So now I'm just going to pass it off to each member of the panel. I would like them to introduce themselves with their names, pronouns, and the team that they are representing. So I don't know who wants to start first. Don't all speak at once.
I'll start. My name is Jevion Thomas. I'm with Advocates for Richmond Youth, and I go by he.
I'm so sorry, we can't hear you, Jay. Okay, so they said their name was.
My name is Jevion Thomas. I'm with Advocates for Richmond Youth, and I go by he, him.
Thank you, Jay. Jevion.
My name is Alicia Shaw. I'm the panelist for RVA Thriving City, and I go by she and her.
And you look beautiful,
My name is Hope Braxton. I'm with Six Pick City Builders, and I go by she, her.
Thank you, Hope. Okay. So now I'm sorry.
My name is Spirit, and I go by she, her.
I'm sorry. I'm going to ask that if we're not speaking, we can mute our mics. Okay. All right, so I'm going to go into our first question, and anyone can answer if they want to answer the question, and you're also free to skip the question if you don't feel comfortable answering it. So what is something that surprised you or that you found interesting while doing this project?
While during this project, something that surprised me the most was that the atmosphere was never negative or depressing. It was always uplifting and inspiring, mainly because of my teammates, but also my focus group participants. They always had a positive attitude, and I believe for a successful outcome, everyone always needs a positive outlook on any situation, including this really tough conversation.
Okay, did anyone else want to?
Something I found interesting was how comfortable the people were that we interviewed to share that experience with us.
Something I found surprising was that a lot of people were evicted, and I didn't realize how bad it was. And that Richmond is the second highest, has the second highest eviction rate, and that is huge. So the U.S. is number 2, and that's just crazy to me.
All right. So the next question is, what is something you heard in the other team's presentation that you thought was interesting or connected to your team study? So I know we got a lot of information just now, but is there anything that spoke to you that that popped out and that made you feel like, hey, you know, we found this too?
So the other groups did emphasize the magnitude of what's happening under situation and eviction. And I thought what was interesting was in that large eviction percentile that you can put all of these people in their own separate groups based on their different situations, which I didn't really think would come out as something in this project.
And that really speaks to the fact that each person's experience of eviction is unique. You know, no one's experience, yes, there may be similarities, but each person experiences it uniquely. Thank you, Alasia.
Something that I have found interesting.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. Something that I found interesting that another group has said was how crime increased after eviction notices were served.
Something I noticed in the other groups are that eviction happens everywhere, and it happens from here and often.
Okay. So the next question is, coming out of this project, what are some other research topics or questions that you'd like to explore in the future? So did you think of any other things that you felt like, oh, I want to delve deeper?
Whether we believe it or not, age was an important factor, and a lot of us focused on 16 and up. But I think nowadays the youth is pretty mature, so I would like to see our groups possibly focus on the youth a little more and how they're affected by the eviction process, because adults aren't the only ones in that situation.
That is a great point, Alasia. That is a wonderful point. Anyone else?
I would like to understand how the housing market collapsed, causing the Great Recession. Instead of landlords evicting tenants, it was mortgage companies evicting homeowners.
Did anyone else want to speak to this question? Okay. All right, so the next question is, what do you want people to know about the importance of youth and young adult voices in community change work?
I want people to know that young people do have a voice and can factor in change.
Thank you, Jay.
I believe it's important to emphasize how crucial it is to pass the torch, because the older generations, although they do pass the torch, there are certain times where the youth may be the oppressed. So I believe, though we're all in a situation together, we may have something to contribute as well.
I love that you brought that up, Alasia. I really do. And it speaks to the adultism that plays out in spaces. And then also the wealth of knowledge that our elders or people who have been doing, this work or have had these experiences, for generations, and how they can really contribute to how change work happens now and building our young leaders up. Thank you so much, Alasia. Does anyone else want to add to that?
Yeah, so youth voices are important because decisions and policies made today will directly affect us in the future. So we need to have a voice in what happens to us. We're the future leaders. We're the future council, people, mayors, governors. We're the future change makers, but we have to start now.
Yes, yes, yes. Does anyone else want to contribute, or did we have everyone? I'm sorry. Okay. So as a young person making change in the community, how can adults show up for you and support your work?
Okay. Well, first of all, I would like to thank all the adults here tonight, because this is great support. I believe as a young person making changes in the community, that adults can show support by exposing us to more. Exposure is crucial to our development, of course, but you don't see a lot of that happening nowadays, especially considering all of the negativity that can come out of certain situations. But I think all aspects of any situation can strengthen our ideologies. So that exposure can actually create a solution down the line if you really think about it.
Thank you. Does anyone else want to answer this question? So as a young person making change in the community, how can adults show up for you and support your work? So we have so many adults in this participating here. So like, call them out, tell them what you need.
Adults can listen to us and not just assume that we're too young to know what we want or what is good for us. Sure, there'll be things that we may want to do that's not good for us. Instead of just yelling at us, explain why you believe those things are good.
Thank you. Thank you. Does anyone else want to contribute?
They can help point us like in the right direction. instead of pointing out the wrong things, like help point us in the right direction, connect us to resources that can help.
So I see, thank you so much, Jay. And I see Alasia placed something in the chat, fund our projects indeed. We have a few people, Destiny, who is also a part of Advocates for Richmond Youth, said, point us to the money. Yes, pull them wallets out. And then we have, let me see if I see anything. Okay, I think that's it. I think that's it. So I wanted to go ahead and just thank everyone who participated in the panel. You guys did a great job. Keep doing what you do. Keep being awesome. Destiny said, also pay us what we deserve. But yes, keep doing what you do. Keep being awesome. And you guys did a wonderful job. A lot of hard work in putting these projects together. Thank you all who supported these teams and being able to, you know, build this project up and work through it. And bye. Well, I'm not leaving, but I'm finished talking. Miss Alex?
Thank you, Tiffany, and thank you to all our panelists. So I'm going to close us out this evening. The power of research as a tool for change lies in its ability to ask the questions that haven't been asked, to frame the issues in new ways, and to lift experiences and analysis that extends our knowledge and understanding beyond our current capacity or limited view. I think all three of these research studies that we have learned about and heard about tonight have achieved these things. And we are grateful for your participation and attendance this evening. In participatory action research, there's actually one additional step, and that is that research is done in the name of change. And so we call each of you to consider, how can you take what you've learned this evening and use your own spheres of influence to take action? How can you facilitate the changes that you've heard the young people calling for this evening? There are three ways that we invite you to help us after you leave this evening. First, get connected to these organizations, lift their work, support their efforts to develop youth leaders. On the screen, you see some ways to get connected and plugged in, reach out to them. Number two, in the next day or two, each of you who are here this evening will receive a brief survey from us about the impact of this project. Please take a few minutes to complete it. Your participation will help us to evaluate and sustain this work. And number three, share what you've learned. The recording of our presentation will be shared in multiple platforms. Once it is ready, we will communicate with you so that you can encourage others to watch, learn, and act. Thank you to the amazing community partners, young researchers, and supporters for making this work possible. And thank you all so much for being here. We hope you all have a great rest of your evening. Good night.
Dr. Wagman, I have a question. Will the presentation be made available for people to access afterwards?
Yes, that's good. We'll send it out to folks. Sorry, I think I'm echoing, Tiff. We will send it out to folks. So the recording will be available on a couple platforms, and we'll let you know when it is available. So yes, and we streamed it on Facebook Live through the VCU School of Social Work Facebook page tonight. So y'all should be able to see it there as well. Thank you all so much for coming. Hope you have a great evening. Good night.